We're here to share with you inspiring stories that bring to life all the little and big ways that people bring more love, joy, laughter, and humanness to everyday life. Our focus is the hunt for those little moments that refuel the human soul and reminds us what life is really all about. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the moments, enjoy the stories, the adventures, and the journeys. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of What the World Needs More Of. I am here with my friend Naresh. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be on. Good to talk to you again.
All right. Now we're going to dive straight in, and I have a question for you. What do you feel the world needs more of?
That's actually a really, really good question, and it's kind of hard to answer because the world needs a lot more of a lot of stuff. I think education is one thing, and what I mean by education is not necessarily like going to school, getting a degree, but just being informed about other people, other cultures, and just understanding that the world is a really, really big place. It's not just where you live. You know, I live in Tampa, Florida, and the world is not Tampa, Florida. It's not Florida. It's not even the United States. So I think being informed is incredibly important. I also think probably even more important than that is the world needs more free thinking and free living people. And what I mean by this is people who focus on themselves more than focusing on other people or other things. I think if the world had more of that, then it would be a more peaceful place and a much happier place as well.
Interesting. I love it. And when you say focusing on selves, you mean focusing on your own life, your own evolution, your own stuff, instead of constantly being about everyone else's business, or is there something else?
Well, it's partly that.
Okay.
And it's good that you're asking a follow-up question because what I'm about to say is actually based on a philosophy that I kind of live my life on, and that's the philosophy of objectivism and Randian philosophy. What that essentially means is focus on yourself because true change happens from within. And then once you focus on yourself and you work on yourself, the effects that it has on other people around you are profound for the better. And I think I look at a lot of the issues that, you know, you just open up in a newspaper, you hear about through friends. You look at a lot of these issues, and it comes down to are people focusing on themselves, trying to improve themselves, better themselves, their situations, their families, or is there something else at play? And so in the case of Randian philosophy, the idea actually is being selfish is a good thing. So focusing on yourself can come across as being selfish, but it's actually a good thing, and not selfish as in I'm the best person in the world, or this is my territory and no one is allowed to be on it, or not selfish in that way, but selfish in that you put yourself first. You put yourself first. You put those who mean to you the most first. And really, you have to put yourself first. And then the effects are profound. So I actually subscribed to that view of philosophy, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. It was a while back, and started practicing it. And I found that my life really, really changed for the better. And my happiness level also went up.
Wow. How cool. I like it. It's a different take on it. I think I subscribe to this in certain categories of my life. There's certain categories where I really believe like you gotta give from a full cup, and I like to give. My thought is, though, I have to be full first. So I'm selfish enough to guard certain parts of the day or certain parts of my life, and that's my space in order to fill up and be ready, and then I can share, and then I have something left to kind of distribute or hand out or just have an abundance in case someone really needs it. So
well, I also want to mention that objectivism and Randian philosophy, they preach adaptability. So when you focus on yourself, that doesn't mean that it's always your way or the highway. It means adapting. It means being water. Water takes the shape of its container, and it's putting yourself in situations and adapting. And all of this is really a trait of open-mindedness. So when I say focusing on oneself has reverberating effects for those around you, that's what I mean. And I think people should, like I said earlier, people I think should be water and not fall victim to what I call weapons of mass distraction. Weapons of mass distraction can be, the Facebooks, the Twitters, engaging with people who you don't like, people who bring you down, even the news. To me, the news is a weapon of mass distraction. And we've really seen that over the past couple of years. It's gone to another level. And the news has caused divisions. It's caused hatred. It's caused friendships to I personally have lost a couple of friends because of the news or because of Facebook argument or debate or something. And those are all weapons of mass distraction. So I'm probably one of the few people who you're going to have on who's going to say, hey, you know what? It's time to preach selfishness. The selfish motive and focusing on oneself has reverberating effects on society as a whole. And it's worked for me. I'm not saying everyone should do this. Maybe this is not the way, but give it a shot and see how it helps improve your life.
Interesting. Getting to know more about you, I'd love to know, what do you consider to be your wow factor? What makes you uniquely you? And what are some of the moments throughout life that help shape it?
Well, I think other people can answer that better, but I know for me personally, that I see is unique compared to those around me is I have a need to really one of the most important things in my life is freedom. And that's freedom to basically do whatever I want, freedom to be happy, freedom to live wherever I want, work from wherever I want, have my own schedule. That's a huge, huge advantage to happiness, at least to my happiness. And so many people in this world don't have what I call freedom. They say that they're free. The United States is the land of opportunity. We have all sorts of freedom that are given to us by the Bill of Rights. But if you ask people, some pointed questions and you see, they're actually not free. And it's partly because they're the ones doing it to themselves. They're the ones who are bound by, the 9-to-5 job, or they feel like they need to get this qualification or this education or this certificate, or they need to have this in their family or this spouse or whatever it is. And all that stuff kind of jails you. I think in my case, I try to be as free as possible and only try to do things that I want to do. And it goes back to kind of the selfish motive. Through that process, I've gotten so many opportunities just being free, lots and lots of opportunities, business-wise, professionally, personally, emotionally. So many different areas have opened up. So I think freedom is incredibly important. Most people don't even think about it when they think about how they want their lives to be, the most important things in their lives. Freedom allows you to do anything.
And what are some of the moments that help push you towards wanting that and desiring that in your life?
Well, in my case, and I think in most people's cases, they essentially say that they're not free, like I mentioned earlier, because they need to get that certificate or they need to get that job or they need to, work the 9-to-5. And I was fortunate in that I always knew as a middle schooler, maybe high schooler, that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was really hard. I just, but I just had something in me that was like, this seems really cool. This sounds really awesome. I want to be like that, or I want to be like this family friend of ours who we know, who's an entrepreneur, or this person who I saw on CNBC who's an entrepreneur. And I just never knew how to become one, even though I went to school. I went to graduate school. I was fortunate to learn a very specific skill set, which has really become modern day business, and that's online and e-commerce, the digital economy. I was able to study and learn online and e-commerce, the digital economy, and really fall in love with it. And that allowed me to have the freedom that I have today. It allowed me to start my first business. It allowed me to do all sorts of cool things online and digitally to make money from my computer. I've been location independent for the most part for the last 5.5 years. So my business is coming up on, my first business is coming up on 6 years of being in operation. And that has allowed me the freedom when your own boss, appreciating really appreciating the freedom that comes with being your own boss is something that I value. And it allows me to do a lot of things. And that's not to say that I'm my own boss. I just sleep all day and get drunk at night and party. And no, because then I wouldn't be able to make money. I wouldn't be able to live life. I'd probably be in a completely different, that's not happiness, at least to me. So I do spend a lot of time working, multiple hours a day. So there's some weeks where I'm pulling all-nighters. Those are maybe like 1 to 2 weeks of the year. It's very busy, but I also appreciate that if I have a lunch meeting in the middle of the day, I can go do it. If I have a family commitment on the middle of a Wednesday, I can do that, no problem. And that's what I mean by the freedom, because at the end of it all, I truly do believe, as I read people like Napoleon Hill and Stephen Covey, as we get older, we're not cherishing the times that, like I said, we pulled the all-nighter studying for the exam, or the all-nighter because of some product launch. We're really cherishing and remembering the great moments that we had in life and the experiences that we had in life and how we lived our life with no regrets and living it to the fullest. And I don't want to be one of those people who is always working 24/7, stuck to some kind of job. And at the end of it all, it's like, man, I really missed out on what this world has to offer.
And was anyone in your family on this route of freedom as well? Or are you the first in your lineage to kind of carve a new path?
Well, it depends on what people think the definition of freedom is. So there are people in my family who would probably say, oh, I'm a very free person. I do well. I have a good job. I've made a lot of money. I've got this much saved up for retirement. I'm doing really well. I feel like I'm free. And that's simply because they have a different definition. They come from a different culture, a different society, where being free meant getting educated, getting a good, stable job, getting married, having kids, and living happily ever after. I think that definition of freedom has really, really evolved over the past decade or so. And it's changing. And it's not just here in the United States, it's across the world. It's with globalization, because globalization was not a thing when I was growing up. It's really the technology, the internet, IT that has opened up globalization and caused the United States to outsource and to help other countries' economies like India, like China. And now we live in a global economy where major nations are doing business with each other, doing trade with each other, and helping each other, regardless of what you read on the news. They all kind of need each other. And as a result, the westernization and these ideas of freedom have spread across the world. And so to answer your question, like I said, the definition of freedom is very different from the previous generation to what it is in today's generation. And so I am kind of paving my own path, not just for my family, but amongst my friends, because when you grow up when your parents are of a different generation and their idea of freedom is something completely different, they raise you to kind of be programmed that this is what freedom is. It's going to the good school and getting a degree and getting a job and, living happily ever after you get married and have kids. And so that's slowly starting to change. I have people come to me once in a while, not all the time, but every couple of weeks or so, and they say, man, I need to learn what you learned. I need to quit my job and do this. I want to quit my job, get in my trailer and just travel and drive around the country or drive around North America. And that's starting to become more of a thing, but it's very, very hard to just quit at something and then say, I want to do this, I want to do that. You need to have a plan. You need to be qualified. You need to have some savings. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not easy. Nothing really is easy. Nothing you want is really easy to get in life.
Speaking of easy and speaking of the journey, what's a moment along your journey that made you feel incredibly humble?
Well, I think as a business person, and you can probably attest to this, but we stay humble. And when I say a business person, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, not as a corporate person or a serial chief executive or a serial executive, but as an entrepreneur, you are forced to stay humble. The market keeps you humble, whether it's the stock market, whether it's the economy, whether it's your own business and the cycle that it goes through. And I'll admit, right now, over the past week, there have been some bad things happen with a couple of my businesses, some bad things. And when I say bad things, it's all relative. So to me, they're bad. They keep you humble. They keep you thankful. At least that's how I see it. But there are also times when things are amazing and things are really good and you're making all sorts of money and all sorts of deals are happening and bad things aren't happening, only good things. And you can lose sight of that humbleness or that humility. But it's just weird how the market works for all business people, whether you're a billionaire or a small business owner with less than $50,000 in annual revenue. You're going to face the lows. You're going to face the bad things. Someone might steal from you. Someone might cheat you. Something might happen if you're in real estate. Something might happen to your house. If you're in technology, you might get hacked. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that can happen. That can happen. So all of that, I think, keeps me humble and keeps me grounded, because I know how hard it is to get started and up and running. That's the hardest part of business. But I also know how hard it is to stay afloat and to make a dollar. And as a result, I don't take the good times for granted at all. And that's part of the reason why I'm a huge proponent of saving. A lot of people, when they're going through a good cycle, they think it's going to continue forever, and they just spend, and then things go bad and they're in horrible situations. I've fortunately grew up. I was in college during the financial crisis, and so I was a student essentially of not just the 2008 financial crisis, but there were people around me, people's parents, where this was happening to. They were shutting down businesses. They were getting divorced. They were losing jobs. And so I was essentially a student of everything regarding the financial crisis. And I've tried to apply that to my own life as well.
So the experience of it yourself, the markets and there's the shifts naturally in business keep you humble, but then also the observation of other people's humbling moments or situations has also just given you that place of humility to go, wow, it could happen anywhere, anytime. I'm going to stay nimble and I'm going to keep that humble spirit just so that I'm always ready.
Exactly. And I'm a huge proponent of observation of others. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, of course, that sounds contradictory to what I said about the selfish motive. But there is a selfish motive in, learning from other people's mistakes, and seeing what other people are doing, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And when I say looking at other people, it doesn't mean your own personal friends or family. It can mean, picking up a book and reading a biography, or picking up a nonfiction book or even a fiction book and reading, what happened to this person and what went wrong, what went right. That's what I mean by that, and applying it to your own life.
I like it. I like it. What about an awe-inspiring moment? A moment that, might have left your jaw on the ground just thinking, wow, and what you saw or experienced or felt, which is a total moment of awe.
To be honest, I guess because of the way I've trained myself, I try not to let my own shortcomings or accomplishments affect my mind or my humility or any of that. I'm more in awe of other people. So when I see like my friends doing great things, a friend of mine, for example, is just coming out with his first, well, he's a distant family member, really. He's coming out with his first Hollywood movie in a couple of weeks, and he's only like 27 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he was like 22, 23, and he was telling me about how he went to film school and he's got this idea and that idea. And, initially I thought, because I went to a public communications school undergrad, and we had all sorts of film students, film majors. And I was just thinking, yeah, it's another one of those guys who went to film school and thinks he's going to become the next Steven Spielberg. And then he came out with his first short. It was for Google. He was hired to do a short for them back when Google Glass was available. And I saw it and I was like, this is incredible. This is really good. This, he's onto something. And 4 years later, he's coming out with his first Hollywood movie. It won some Sundance Film Festivals. Sony acquired the rights to it. He's only 27 years old. The reviews for the movie are really good. And he signed his second movie deal earlier this year, and it's looking like he's going to get a third movie deal after now that the critics are saying that this first movie was good. And so that's just an example where I come into contact with so many people throughout my life, people who are doing incredible things like against so many odds. I mean, making it in Hollywood. I know you grew up in LA, so how many people have that dream and how difficult it is to accomplish. But to essentially go against the herd and to go against your critics. And I'll admit, I was somewhat of a critic without seeing his work or anything. I was just like, oh yeah, another one of those film Hollywood guys who's trying to make it in Hollywood. And to go against the grain and do what you love and succeed, that's really what's awe-inspiring to me. And there are countless people, whether they're in Hollywood, whether they've had upbringings that were not the greatest. Maybe they didn't have parents around. Maybe they didn't have much money. Maybe they were on welfare, whatever. And to see people like that overcome those odds and accomplish something big. I'm not talking about going to school and getting a degree. I'm talking, at the Hollywood level to do something really big. To me, that's what's inspiring to me. It's not really what I do. It's these other people who inspire me.
I see. So seeking inspiration through observation of others. What about your greatest fear?
Well, I'll admit that one of the greatest fears, there are a lot of fears I have, and I try my best to deal with them. Some of those fears include dying. Like I went through a period of my life where a few people I knew died, and I had a fear of dying. And I live in inner city Baltimore. My neighbors got shot and died. Some other friends outside of Baltimore died, and I was just scared of dying. And it's something, I wouldn't call it a fear. I think it's important that when you fear something, you just let it come in. You let that fear come in and you accept that it's a fear, and then it almost becomes your friend. So in the case of dying, I got some life insurance, and I said, I'm just going to live my life to the fullest. And if I die, then I die. And I think in so many other ways, I'm fearful that my investments are going to go really bad and they go to zero. Let's say I have, just hypothetical purposes, let's say I have $100,000 in investments, and they're in stocks, bonds, cryptos, real estate, CDs, and I'll admit I have a fear that these investments that I have could go to zero for whatever reason. Even though history says that they're not, there's still that fear. And so how do I deal with the fear? Again, like I mentioned earlier, you just let the fear in and you accept it. And it's almost kind of a fatalist way of looking at life. But I'm not saying be a fatalist, but you just try your best to conquer those fears, to address them, and to then just put your faith and trust elsewhere.
I like it. Step into it.
Yep.
There's freedom there. What about your future? What are you most excited about for your future?
Well, there's a lot going on with my future. I'm getting married later this year.
Hey,
so
congratulations.
Thank you. So that is really probably going to take on a new life of its own, as you probably know. And so that is what I'm kind of looking forward to, and that's going to really take up my mind share moving forward. Business-wise, the business opportunities seem to always be coming in, and so I don't fear that aspect as much. That was a fear 2-3 years ago. Am I going to get enough clientele? Am I going to make enough money to meet rent? Am I going to be able to grow this business or that business? And things over the last 2 years or so have turned around and seem to be heading in the right direction. So to me, I think the biggest opportunity, the business stuff is always going to be there, but it's kept me humble, and I don't get too excited when good things happen there. But I think the marriage and the life during marriage is a completely different animal, and I'm looking forward to that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're going to shift gears in the second section of the show here. We call this nuts and bolts. It's the tangible, practical, tactical tips and tools people can use and apply from listening to you today. So the first question is, where do you currently focus the majority of your thoughts and time in life each day as of right now?
A good chunk of my day is actually spent on not just my work and my business, but also outside of my work. It's just ideas, and they don't have to be business ideas. I'm a writer myself. I've come out with 4 books. I have my 5th book coming out this year. And so I'm always thinking of ideas, and writing is a really, really good way to ideate. Whether it's just writing ideas or writing a chapter in a book, it really causes your mind to exercise that your brain muscles. I mean, the brain probably doesn't have any muscles, but that's what I like to call it, the brain muscles. So I spend a good time of my day focusing on exercising my body physically, exercising my mind mentally, whether that's through ideas, writing, playing chess, watching good stimulating documentaries, movies, reading good books. I spend a good time of my day doing that. And then emotionally, it's connecting with people who mean a lot to me, who improve my life, who are there for me, and who are just fun to be around. So all those are important to my daily routine.
I love it. And with all of that, what would you say is one of the keys to your success in what it is that you focus on?
I truly believe that it's like freedom begets more freedom. And with freedom, anything is possible. So in my case, people ask me all the time, just like what you're asking me, how are you able to accomplish this? How are you able to accomplish that? How are you able to do this and this and this? There are only so many hours in a day. And really the secret is stay physically fit, stay mentally healthy, eat well, get a lot of sleep, don't be tired, don't be angry, don't be around people who make you angry. If you can get rid of a lot of this toxic from your life and just be healthy from top to bottom, then it's going to do wonders for your creativity, for your productivity, for your efficiency. It does so much. And I really, it's a process. This did not happen overnight. I didn't read some 7 Habits of Highly Effective People And then overnight, I became like this. This is over, I would say it took me 2 to 3 years to really ingrain all of these ideas into my daily routine so that I could be more productive and more focused.
I like it. Speaking of tips and ideas, what is one final tip you could give to everyone, someone who's listening, to say, hey, here's one thing you could do each day, and if you did this one thing, you will start to see more productivity, more achievement, more experience, more depth with their family, all these areas you focus on of writing and connecting and being and exercising your mind and body. If you had to choose just one tip for someone to do each day, what would the tip be for them to focus on to help them achieve the kind of success or experience in life you have created for yourself?
Well, this is actually an exercise that I do every day without even knowing it. I did it on purpose, and it's just become a part of who I am. But I truly believe that just going to bed every night, before you go to bed, think to yourself, did I learn something new today? And if you go to bed one day and you realize, man, I didn't really learn anything, and you'll be surprised at how many people, they come home from work, they eat their dinner, they go to sleep, and they didn't learn anything that day. And if all you can do is just learn one new thing, whether it was a new software or how to use a new software or something about the world or something about another religion or culture or something about your city, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you learned something. And if you can do that every day, the compounding effect of all that learning is going to be pretty profound in your life. So already in my case, the day's not even over yet. And I can tell you that so far today, I've learned about some technology stuff with web development and web building. I learned some new features, and that's what I learned today. And yesterday, I learned something about real estate and people and tenants, and I got that experience yesterday. But you'll be surprised at how many people, they'll come home, they'll go to sleep, and they didn't learn anything. And if that's the case, then you can expect to just stay where you are. And if you're happy where you are, that's not a problem. You can be happy with that. But if you're looking to improve your life, peak performance type of deal, you want to learn just at least one thing new every day. I think that'll go a long way, and you'll see huge benefits and changes in your life.
I love it. I love it, and I agree with it. Learning one new thing a day is a great personal challenge. Well, sir, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing everything with us today. If you want to learn more about his books and writings and websites and everything he's up to, please visit our show notes. It'll have all the links and all the descriptions there where they can link up with you and find more and learn about all the different books you've written and all the great stuff you're up to. But from all of us to you, Naresh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on.
Absolutely. And for everyone who's tuning in, as always, if you love these shows, make sure to share them. Make sure that you find a friend, tell them to listen in, click subscribe, and just a reminder, we love sharing. We believe that sharing is caring, and we love caring people, so make sure to share. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you all next episode.